fails to honor his parents, is there anyone he will spare? Sometimes the parenting is filled by, I want to get this in, step parents, foster parents, grandparents, or guardians. These are authority figures, and they also need to be honored as well. We've got the misconception in a lot of mixed families, where you have stepchildren, step parents, or like I said, sometimes the grandparents or things like that. There's a lot of misconception. Well, because you aren't my immediate mother or father, I don't have to respect you. I don't have to obey you. Well, that's wrong. There should still be that respect for authority there. And so the commandment here in Exodus 20 and verse 12, he says that your days may be long upon the land, which the Lord your God gives you. The word in the New Testament says it's the first commandment with promise. First commandment with a promise attached to it. And again, the national character of this covenant can be seen, nationally speaking. Since God's moral character is unchanging, these moral principles have universal application. Now, I know that here he was speaking specifically to the children of Israel. I understand that. And talking about the land they will possess, but the principles are the same. The principles of God are the same. The principles don't change. God's character is immutable, doesn't change. His principles don't change. And so the principles all through the ages are the same. And I believe that God stands behind this word. I don't believe it was abolished. Some people say, well, Jesus came to the Ten Commandments were abolished. No, I still think that honoring your parents applies. I don't think that he did away with that. And so even Jesus demonstrated that himself. He honored Mary and Joseph and demonstrated that himself. So it's the first commandment with promise, and the commandment clearly indicates that God values relationships and he holds them sacred. He values relationships. And God holds those relationships sacred. He holds us responsible in those relationships. And I believe furthermore that this mandate emphasizes that God is the creator of the home. God established the three institutes that God established. First of all was the home. The home, the family. God established that first and foremost before he even established government and before he established the church. The three institutions that he established was home, government, and church. And pretty much in that order. And so he considers our attitudes and our actions towards our parents a measure of godliness. In Ephesians 6:2, if you'd like to, you can turn with me there. We'll be there for just a few minutes. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2 is where he says, Paul writes, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. In the Greek, honor means esteem, value as precious. Your father and your mother. Esteem, honor, treat as precious. The attitude of reverence has a double promise attached to it. And those who act properly towards parents are promised well-being and longevity as a general principle. Now, I know that children die young, and it doesn't have anything to do with them disobeying. I understand that, but I'm talking in generalities here. I'm talking as a rule of thumb. As a rule, because there's some questions that I don't always have an answer to, except just trust God, But as a rule of thumb, there's a promise attached to that, and if we will have the proper attitude towards our parents, we're promised well-being, we're promised longevity, as a general principle of that. So, and of course, if you knew my parents, it would pay you to honor them if you want to continue to live. That might have been what God was thinking of when he might have my parents in mind, or some other parents in mind when he was When he commanded us, if you want long life, you better obey your parents. Like some parents say, I've brought you in this world, I take you out. So, obey your parents if you want to live. And I can almost, you remember the Terminator movie where he said, if you want to live, come with me. I can almost hear God saying, if you want to live, obey your parents. But anyway, and this verse here in Ephesians alludes to that. Now, and look on down, look at verse 3. It says, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And then he says, you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Fathers, he says, and notice he shifts that responsibility squarely to the father. That doesn't lead to mothers without responsibility, but he really charges the fathers. And he says, fathers, don't irritate. And I know why he said that to fathers. He says, don't irritate and provoke your children to anger. Don't exasperate them to the point of resentment, but rear them tenderly in the training, the discipline, the admonition, the counsel of the Lord. Now I know why he specifically pointed out fathers, because the difference in male and female, the fathers, in general terms, generally speaking, the father is more the take charge type. The father is more the disciplinarian in most cases. Now sometimes the mother ends up being more the disciplinarian, but in most cases the father is the disciplinarian. The father is, but fathers sometimes can be rougher in their discipline than what the mothers will be. Mothers just have that tenderness about them that, they'll go kind of easy on their children sometimes. The fathers sometimes tend to be too harsh. I've even been too harsh, I think. I don't think I knew. I can look back on times and I was a little too harsh with my children. And I, of course, cried and bitter tears and repented over a lot of that. But I think fathers, because they don't have that element of compassion. I'm not saying fathers aren't compassionate, but they don't have that element of compassion that mothers have. Mothers just have a soft spot, a softness there that dads don't have. So I believe that's why he pointed to fathers. He said, fathers, don't provoke your children. Don't cause them to be resentful. Don't rear them with resentment in their hearts. And so there's a warning to parents. If you want your children to honor you or respect you, then you need to honor your children. If you want them to respect you and to honor you, then you certainly need to honor your children. See, too many times as parents, and I've done it, probably you have, millions have done it, you tell your kids something, and what's the most famous word among children? Why? Because I said so, that's why. Well, that may be true and it may be authoritative, but that's really not a good reason, because I said so. We need to tell them, don't go playing that road. Why? Because I said so. Well, it wouldn't hurt to take a few extra seconds and say, don't go playing that road. Why? Because I want you to be safe, and you're risking your life playing out there, and I love you, and I don't want you to get killed. And so it's not always that cut and dry and that simple, but basically we tend to disregard our children's feelings sometimes, because of our and again, particularly men, our harshness. But so Paul here is warning parents not to direct their children toward the wrath of God, but the parent, they're commanded to rear the children in the that word in the Greek, admonition, is training, or nurture is training, and education and admonition of the Lord. Admonition has the idea, of course, of discipline. Literally, it means to put in mind. It has the idea of discipline. So it's to remind the child of faults and duties by teaching him self-control. Again, that's the problem with society today. These people they're doing all these crazy things, and there's no self-control. When people just think that the solution is just to rise up and kill somebody, their self-control is out the window. Self-control is gone. And, unless it's in self-defense and you're defending yourself, that's a whole different